The second step is to implement the command pattern and the commands that our application needs. In this mini application, we only need a command that can send the student details back. That is what the user is requesting for. So let's implement the command pattern. Right click on this package, say new, interface, command. Finish. The command interface will have a single method called string execute the command. It will return the page that the user should be sent to next. The execute method itself will take the HTTP servlet request and HTTP servlet response. Go to the front controller, grab the HTTP servlet request and response, copy them, come back to command and paste them. Next, create a concrete command class, new class, call it view student command. Click on add, search for command and select it from front controller, hit OK, finish. Hit Ctrl D to delete the line. So this command is responsible for sending the student details back to the user. It will use the HTTP servlet request and response as required to get that job done. So within this command, we will create a value object. I will explain what a value object is once we wrap this up. Student VO is a value object. Call it VO is equal to new student VO. VO should be capital. Within brackets, pass 1 comma, the student name is Bob to the constructor. This class doesn't even exist, but we will create it with the help of Eclipse. Hit Ctrl 1, create student VO class, finish. A value object or a VO is simply a Java bean that will carry the information for us across the Java EE layers. Again, I'll explain more about VO in lectures later. Create the constructor that will take 2 parameters and define the fields. Private int ID of the student, private string name of the student. Select these 2 fields, go to source, do a generate getters and setters, select all, hit OK. Ctrl Shift F to format, and within this constructor, this dot ID is equal to I, and this dot name is equal to, change this parameter to name and assign that name here. Also change this I to ID and assign that ID to this dot ID. So you have created a VO, a value object that can be sent back to the next view that the user can see. So you are retrieving, typically we would retrieve these student details from the database, but for simplicity reasons here we are hard coding the values into the VO. Request dot set attribute, you can pass this to the user. Student details is the key and the value is the VO itself. So in the next JSP that you create, these details can be retrieved from the request object. Finally, we need to return a page back, the next JSP back to the client. So within double quotes, call it show student details. So this is just the name of the JSP page, no extension here. When you create the dispatcher servlet next, that is where you will use the .jsp extension. So far you have created a command that will create a student VO, set it into the request, and then it is also returning a view, that is the next JSP that should be sent back to the user. Go to the command helper. This get command should return a command. Now that we have a command, it will return a command back. Hit Ctrl 1, change the return type to or add return statement. Based on the request URI, this command helper should return an appropriate command. So do that check. If the request URI dot contains or equals, it's up to you, you can use either of those. go to the index.jsp. If it contains this view student details.do, then we will create a return new student view student command. View student command. So based on the URI, we are going to return a appropriate command back. We can also have commands for create a student, update a student, etc. And in the front controller, we will assign this. Once the command helper returns a command, assign it to a local variable, call it command, and invoke the command.execute and pass in the request and response to the command. So that is the power. The front controller is completely detached from what actual command gets executed. We are dynamically retrieving the command by passing in the URI. The command helper will retrieve the appropriate command based on the URI, and then the front controller invokes the execute method on the command by passing in the request and response, and that command will perform the appropriate action. In this case, that action is to simply create a VIVO, student VIVO, set the details on it, set it onto the request, and return the next view back. We will use that view in the next lecture. So instead of hard coding these URIs here like this configuration can go into XML files. In frameworks like Structs, Spring, this configuration, this mapping of a URI to a particular controller or command goes into a XML file.